Sometimes we talk about the red flags of a narcissist. Things you got to watch out for. Now let's talk about the green flags of a narcissist. What is the difference? Have you ever heard of a green flag? Probably not because, well, I just made it up a few minutes ago. But let's imagine that you were taking a walk in the woods, taking a hike, and there's a red flag. And it just kind of stands out because everything around you is green. Everything is earth tones. But this red flag, it just stands out against the background. That's what we talk about when we're talking about the red flags of narcissism. But what if that flag is not red? What if the flag is green? And it blends in with the background. I mean, you almost have to step on it to see it. It's kind of subtle. Well, just like a green flag, there are in the woods, there are green flags of narcissism. These are subtle signs, difficult to see. You may trip over them before you even know they're there, but nonetheless, they are there. And I got to say, before we dig into this, I really don't think any one of these green flags signifies that this is a narcissist. But when you take them all together, it builds a fairly compelling case. Number one is what I call the feedback fence. Now, some of these terms, I just made them up because I've experienced them, and I don't know if there even are clinical terms for these things, but I want to come up with terms that are easy to remember and things we can identify with. So what is the feedback fence? Well, let me explain it this way. Years ago, I was at a church, and we had a pastor, a minister, who was very open to ideas. So you go to the pastor and say, you know, I got this idea, I think it might work. And he was open to it. He would listen to it. So he had a feedback fence. It had a wide open gate. He was open to listen to new ideas. Sometimes my ideas were good. Sometimes they were bad. Sometimes he would implement them, sometimes not. But the point is, he was open to hear new ideas, not just from me, but from anybody. So that is what I would call an open feedback fence, where the gate's open. But I had another pastor, a good guy, a high-quality person, really liked him, but he had a feedback fence and the gate was closed, always. You would go to this guy and say, hey, I got an idea, maybe something we could try. And he just responded instinctively in the negative. He would immediately say, no, we're not going to do it that way. I don't know why, but he had a closed feedback fence. You probably know somebody right now. You go to them with an idea or a suggestion, particularly a person who is in a position of authority or decision making, maybe a manager at work, maybe a teacher at school, or administrator. They just closed off. They don't want to hear it. Whatever suggestion, idea you have, they don't want to hear it. Maybe somebody you're doing business with. You got an idea? Nah, we don't want to hear it. But there are other people just the opposite, like the first pastor, and they have a feedback fence with a wide open gate. Sure, let's take your suggestions. By the way, wise people are open to suggestions. That doesn't mean you have to take them. That doesn't mean you have to implement them. But wise people are open to suggestions. But if you have somebody who has that closed feedback fence, that's a green flag. Doesn't mean he's a narcissist or she is a narcissist. But that's a subtle hint that maybe so. Now, that second pastor that I talked to, 100% convinced, very humble man, he is not a narcissist. But in some people, that would be an indicator. Number two is what I just call the green flag of personal agenda. Or just agenda. So whatever you do, however you do it, it's got to be their time, their place, their way of doing it. And that's kind of related to the feedback fence because, well, they obviously know better than everyone else. That's why we call them narcissists, because they are self-centered. They are self-focused. They look at their reflection and they say, okay, doesn't get any better than this. They look at the reflection of their ideas. They say, doesn't get any better than this. They have an agenda. They are driven. Now, does that mean they're a narcissist? Not necessarily. I mean, virtually every successful business that ever existed found success due to the determination of leadership. There's some guy, some woman at the head of the company who just, went for it, and they succeeded. That doesn't mean they're narcissists, even though often they are. That doesn't mean they're psychopaths. A lot of times they are, but sometimes they're just, they're just driven to get the job done. And sometimes, you just can't take everybody else's idea because you can't all go in different directions at the same time. You never accomplish anything. But a narcissist, you will find they always, doesn't matter what it is. We're not talking about business. We're talking about a road trip. We're talking about a school project or some project at work or the way to paint something, the color. They are obsessed with doing it their way, their time, their place, and whatever you suggest. Again, this is kind of tied into that feedback fence, but whatever you suggest, it's wrong because, well, it's not their idea. And what is interesting about this, if your idea was identical to their idea, they will change their idea because you can't be right. They have to be right. That is what I call the agenda green flag. Number 3 is shallow empathy. Now, I got to say that you can't demonstrate effective empathy for everybody on the planet all the time. There are 8 billion of us. I mean, you can't take care of everybody. You can care about them, but you can't take care of them. So there's a difference between caring and take caring. Huge difference. Can't possibly. I struggle to take care of myself. I can't take care of everybody else. So what I do is I mow my grass. Is that selfish? Why did I mow everybody else's grass? Would that be empathy? No, I think that would be silly. But, if someone is sick or somebody has some difficulty in their life, a few years ago we had an older woman and her husband passed away. Neighbors, so I went down and mowed her grass because I knew she was preoccupied, didn't have time to do it. That is a demonstration of empathy. And I know when I've had physical problems in, recent years, I've had family members come over and mow my grass for me. That's empathy. But we can't do that for everyone. So what does that have to do with green flags? What we find is somebody who is a narcissist, they are always self-centered, maybe the closest of relatives they'll care about, or I should say usually the closest of relatives they will care about because they're their relatives. But outside of that, any empathy they show, it's very superficial. That is to say, they may say they care, and that's as far as it goes. They never actually do anything. And if they do something, it's because somebody else compelled them, and they don't want to be embarrassed not to do it. Very superficial empathy. But that doesn't mean they're narcissists because we all have superficial empathy. Again, we can't take care of all 8 billion of everybody else. We can care about them, but we can't take care of them. But the narcissist, that seems to be a trait. So that doesn't mean he's a narcissist, that's just a green flag. Number 4 is what I like to call the green flag of garbage collecting. Narcissists tend to be garbage collectors. By that I mean they will have a conversation with you and they may not draw this out, but they would just listen. For you to say something about your past or present that is less than flattering, and they will store that in their mind. They collect it. So they listen to hate to call it garbage, but if you made, mistakes in your life, and I'm assuming you have, and you tell that to somebody, they can store that away forever. And if it's a narcissist, they just seem to naturally have this capacity. It's like their brain is a landfill, where they listen to everybody's garbage and they store it. Some people, they have a garage, and the purpose of the garage is to put junk in it. I've got a garage and I put cars in it. Okay, maybe the same thing. In my case with the car is the junk. But the point is some people have garages for cars. Some people have garages for stuff they don't want to use, but they don't want to throw away. So they use their garage as storage for junk. It's their business, not mine. But a narcissist has like that junk garage in his mind. And all these things that you say to a narcissist or that he may observe without you saying them, he keeps, or she keeps, garbage collecting. Then, once the narcissist entraps you and ensnares you, abuses you, then decides to discard you, they embark on a smear campaign. And guess what? They've got all that garbage, which may not even be true. They could have embellished it to the point where it's not even recognizable. But they've got it, and they spread it all around, and people believe it. Let me say this in passing real quick. The way to live your life, in my opinion, is in such a way that someone has to lie about you to slander you. For someone to slander me, I want them to have to lie. Now that sounds noble, right? Well, keep this in mind. Narcissists don't mind lying. They just make stuff up. They will take the flimsiest of excuse to use to defame you. They do it all the time. Now, if somebody is listening to you, and by the way, we shouldn't be talking about garbage in our life, but we do, because we're just human. But if a narcissist or anybody is listening to that, storing it, that doesn't mean they're a narcissist. That's just a green flag. That indicates that, well, maybe they could be, but you don't know. And again, when you couple these all together, when you bring them in collectively, that makes a compelling argument. Number 5 is what I call surface friendship. I was going to say superfluous, then I said surface, and it came out surface or something like that. So surface friendships, superfluous surface friendships. You can't be everybody's friend, right? So you go to the workplace, I don't know how many people work with you, but you can't be best buddies with everybody. Go to school, you can't be everybody's best friend. Go to church, you can't be everybody's best friend. Neighborhood, you can't be the best friend of everybody. You can be friendly to everybody, but you can't be their best friend. Well, a narcissist will try to give the impression that he or she is your best friend, even though they're not. That becomes painfully obvious as you get into the relationship with you. So they may be here for a moment, and the next moment they're gone. Here for a week, gone for a week. Here for a few months, gone for a few months, then they're back. Very superfluous, very surface, very surface. Superfluous friendship. Does that mean they're a narcissist? No, it could just mean they're busy. Could mean they just have a wide array of friends. And they can't be friendly with everybody all the time because they got so many friends, they just kind of bounce around. That does not mean they're narcissist. But a narcissist will do that. So that is a green flag. It is a subtle sign that maybe you're dealing with a narcissist. Number 6 is what I call the moral me mindset. If you've ever been involved in a church or religious organization, it's almost impossible to not stumble across these people. Now, very seldom, almost never, do you hear somebody talk about how moral they are compared to everyone else. Directly, overtly, but still they give that impression. They want people to think that they have this higher moral standard than others, and they do this through virtue signaling sometimes. Trying to think of a good example of virtue signaling where you just kind of impress other people with how virtuous you are compared to everybody else. That is a moral me mindset. And who knows, maybe they are more virtuous than everyone else. That doesn't make them a narcissist, right? But that's a subtle sign. That is something that a narcissist will do. Number 7 is this, and this is like a subset of number 6. And that is proud to be humble. And again, you see this often in a religious setting or in any kind of social setting where any kind of principle of morality is valued. So somebody will say that, well, they're not going to say this overtly, but they're going to say by their actions or giving their impressions that they are so very humble. And they're very proud of the fact. I know people who drive junk cars because they can't afford nice cars. And they don't want to waste money. They're good financial managers. And someday when they have the resources, they will buy a nice new car. But for now, they drive around in a junk car. Because they don't want to waste money on something that they don't absolutely positively need, because they do have needs like paying their bills and groceries. So they drive around this old, rust bucket, keep it in the garage. There are other people who drive around junk cars. They don't have to, but it's an expression of humility. They're trying to show off the fact that they're not, that they don't show off. That is what we're talking about, proud to be humble. Is that the best suggestion, or the best idea, rather? Best illustration? Probably not. Maybe you can think of a better one. If you can, let me know. I know there's no in the comments. See those two rectangles on the screen? Let's keep talking if you want. Just click one of those two rectangles and our conversation will continue. If not, my voice is given out, so we'll see you all next time.